again, it wasn't in my nature, so I kept on asking, can I, is it okay? And at the moment when it was actually going to come to intercourse, that is when she said, this is going to be her first time, and that is when I stopped. Because that's when I said, this can't go on any further, just before then. But as far as to answer the question, was it just kissing? No, it wasn't. I was going further. It got to the point where they was touching. And again, just before the point of.
All right. But why was your DNA found on her original swabs, and swabs? And why would she have bruising on her hips and thighs?
That's another thing too. Thank you for reminding about that. Again, it was touching. Again, it was, I don't want to give disrespect, but I was kissing in inappropriate places. That's actually the answer to the question.
And you were 51 years old.
Yes.
At the time.
Yes.
And she's a minor, but you're saying you assumed maybe she was 19, but.
Right. Another innocent Baba Angel Aladdin. Just another Chomo having no idea how old his brother's daughter is. That's really a good excuse too. Not only that, but he comes into this story so convoluted, so full of lies. You're going to see lie after lie after lie, and he just might get away with it. You see, his niece, he was to take her to a concert. She woke up in her bed wondering why she was sore. They took her to the hospital and found this monster's DNA all over her. Now, he will sit here at the parole hearing and say that they just drank too much. That's why she doesn't remember. They actually drank, according to him, 2 beers each. But somehow she lost complete memory of how it was that he had taken her to a motel room and how he had done those actions, and then how he was the chivalrous Chomo who stopped when she said that she was saving herself. Will the parole board buy into those lies? Will they take it hook, line, and sinker? Well, it certainly seems that the pathetic agenda-driven judge and DA did. They only sentenced him to 10 years, but suspended after just 3. Parole eligibility after half of that, 1.5 years. It's all a gimmick. It's all a mockery of the system, and it's all a joke on us, the people. But that's why we are here to call out the insanity. Now, let's see if the parole board does their job by keeping this monster in prison. And with that, let's jump in.
My name is Hector Cuvi.
And your inmate number, sir?
449698.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
This hearing is being conducted for consideration for a parole application for Hector Cuvi, 449698. He is serving a sentence of 10 years of execution suspended after 3 years with 2 years of probation for assault 2nd degree. As of today, records reflect the eligibility date of January 20th, 2026. There is victim input in this case. There is an offender accountability plan for the offender. It has been reviewed to show the offender has completed the short track sex offender program, Embracing Fatherhood, AVP program in anger management. Utilizing the statewide collaborative offender risk evaluation system scores, the offender's overall score falls in the low range. Utilizing the static 99, the offender's overall score for sexual offender recidivism falls in the low range. This is your opportunity to express and report why you should be granted parole. You may begin.
First of all, sir, I just wanted to ask one quick question. I wanted to apologize, and I'm not very well versed in expressing myself, so I'm going to try to answer all your questions to the best of my ability. That's the first thing. And number 2, I did write a bit of a statement. I don't know if I could do it now or later, but I just wanted to
yes, sir. If you have a brief statement that you'd like to read now, this is your opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me. Since September of 2021, before incarceration, I struggled with myself to find the meaning as to why I failed those who placed their trust in me and finally myself.
Sir,
I
hold
failed
on one
to-
second. Just hold on one second. We're not going to use the victim's name today at all.
I should have asked. I
Yeah,
apologize.
if you want to refer to that person, you can just say the victim.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I struggled with myself to find the meaning as to why I failed the victim, those who placed their trust in me, and finally myself. I failed you, an innocent person, by placing you in a position to which you should have never been exposed to. Product of my failure to assess and fully comprehend the harm I was doing in that moment. It was through a long and extensive internal evaluation and willingness to no longer place delay and to confront my responsibility. To avoid her from being constantly reminded of my failure to secure her well-being and betraying the trust that she placed in me, I decided to place an end in my attempt to find rationalization for my actions of that night that caused her so much harm. I placed myself before the justice system and held myself accountable for what I have done, with the resolve to accept the consequences of my responsible and thoughtless actions of that night. No amount of preparation on my part was enough to put a hold onto the circumstances I would go through for the rest of the few weeks. Nonetheless, by the continuous support from my friends and family, I gathered strength and resolve by being reminded that I was not alone. I found the resolve and determination to accept and embrace my circumstances. With a newfound sense of focus and perspective, I found the conviction to improve myself in my circumstances by becoming and remaining productive and proactive in every way. To use my time wisely, develop myself physically, mentally, and spiritually by routine exercise, healthy educational literature, and private moments of religious self-eternal reflection. I displayed obedience, respect, and compliance to all authority and staff. Set example by staying away from all things negative and counterproductive. Most importantly, by utilizing the many programs and activities available to me by the institution. I am grateful for the Department of Corrections for providing me with the necessary tools and resources to help me become aware of just how uneducated and incorrect my interpretation of circumstances and my own way of thinking had been. Never would I have begun to consider all the underlying factors that led to my offense. I now understand the judgment and thinking errors I incurred upon. Through the mental health program especially, I was made aware of not only my offense, but all the underlying causes and triggers that led me to offend. I have been educated and have been made well aware of my negative emotions and distorted thoughts. I was able to recognize my internal and external triggers and ways to avoid them by developing coping and problem-solving skills. I have developed a healthy relapse prevention plan that will enable me to reestablish and reinforce a wonderful life and never incur into an offense again. For my defense against the victim of all things, I would like to express my utmost sincere remorse for the actions against her. What occurred was solely my fault, and I hold myself personally accountable for my actions. What I should have done is never misinterpret the kindness she extended. I should have reciprocated with the respect she deserves. I'm very sorry for the suffering and hardships that her and her family went through, and again emphasize that this is something that should have never happened and she should have never had to experience in the first place. I would like to offer her and her family any manner of assistance on my part, but to strive to reach any type of atonement, to provide some measure of restitution for what I have done. I offer at the same time my utmost regret for the whole family of my actions, of her family of my actions, and also extend my appeal for forgiveness. I understand and I am aware of the suffering that everyone went through. This hardship is not a momentary lapse, and I am aware that my failure towards her and her family will resonate for years to come. For my actions, I reiterate my sincere plea for forgiveness to her and her family. I'm fully confident that I can rejoin my family and my community to provide support for my family, strengthen my community through love, solidarity, and labor. I would like to convey that I will not return to my community and society as a whole with the fear of being careful-minded in my actions, but rather with confidence and assurance that my life will be exceptional, full of good things, and above all, love, respect, and compliance towards all as a whole. Through my personal beliefs, I vow to resume and to continue but to citizen by committing myself to the collective self and not just the individual self. This failure is my starting point to invest in myself and be the best person I can possibly be. And thank you very much. That's what I wanted to express because, again, I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to convey this directly.
Thank you, Mr. Cuvi. I'm glad you wrote it down and you did a really good job with that statement and explaining where you're at right now.
Thank you,
So
sir.
what's gonna happen today, sir, is that we're gonna take turns asking questions. And then when we're done, we're gonna deliberate. We'll hear from the Office of Victim Services, then we'll deliberate, and then we'll give you our answer today, okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
My colleague, panel member Keys, is gonna start this morning with the questions.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your opening statement. Like my colleague said, it was quite helpful. I would like to hear from you what did happen that night, because through your statement now and then what I read through the official documents, there seems to be some discrepancy in what you are sharing has happened. So if you, without again saying the victim's name, if you could please just let the panel know what you are saying happened and that you're responsible for.
So, and if I understand you correctly, you'd like me to elaborate what happened that night?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So basically what happened is that I was asked to take her to view a concert show that she had tickets for. So I agreed, given that I was the only one that had that night off that night and everybody else worked, because that was my usual day off. So I picked her up. We went to the venue first. Since it was still early, the gates weren't open, we stayed in the car, we talked. I bought we had some food, some snacks before we went inside. So during that point, we stayed in the car for about, I want to say, an hour and a half, and we just talked. We got to know each other. In other words, because before this, I didn't really know her. So we talked about personal stuff like school, where she lived, where I lived, how she grew up, how I grew up. In other words, we were breaking the ice. So the gates opened, we went inside, we saw the concert. As a way of breaking ice at the same time, I offered to buy a beer. Altogether, I bought 4 beers throughout that whole night, so basically we had 2 beers each. But I remember at the end, when the concert was over, we were walking outside, and as we were walking, we were trying to figure out what to do. And it was just the fact that let's not go home, let's go out, let's go someplace else, let's go to a club or whatever. So basically, since I never have gone out in years, I just didn't know where to go. So I kind of said, let's just go get something to eat. So there's a place that I usually go to with my family in Oxford. I decided to go there because I knew for a fact that was a place to eat. So we went there, and it was still COVID, and I didn't even realize it, that the place when we got there was closed. So we stayed in the car for a couple of minutes in the parking lot, and I asked her, hey, it's closed, what do we do now? So basically we started looking for suggestions, and I just flat out and said at that point, I said, do you want to go to a hotel? So we went to the hotel. We got there. We were talking for a bit, and basically what I did is I asked her, can I kiss you? So the next couple of moments, I mean, things were happening. And at that point, there was a point where she said to me that this was going to be her first time. And that's when something inside of me said, I can't do that. And I said, let's just stop before things go too far. So we did stop afterwards. And I was kind of explaining to her, saying, I don't have a right to do this, because it's one thing to engage into something, and it's another thing that if this is going to be your first time, I don't have a right to do that to you, because those are going to have repercussions. So in other words, I tried to make her aware that things shouldn't happen that way so quick. So bottom line is, we talked for a little bit. We went home. I made sure that she went inside. I went back to my house, and we went inside. And then the next day, I woke up and I was thinking to myself, thank God things didn't go all the way that they were going to go, because in my mind, that then and there, I said, okay, I dodged something. I said, that was gonna have serious repercussions for both of us. And at that moment, I didn't realize that the damage was already done. I didn't really think things out at that moment, and reiterate what I wrote to right now to what happened there. If I understood correctly, as far as the inconsistencies go, I didn't realize what I was doing in that second to her, as far as me failing consent. I failed to think that, is she in her right mind to make that decision? Is she in her right mind to accept going to the hotel in the first place? That then and there, the night before, I wasn't thinking that. I was just thinking, okay, we're hanging around, and let's just go. But I didn't think to actually establish whether she was perfectly capable of accepting going in the first place. And the reason I changed that sort of behavior in my way of thinking is because I kind of think this is two phases, two moments in my life where I wasn't thinking as I should have. The first phase was before the incarceration, because before then I was just thinking, look, we're just gonna have a time, a moment to share or whatnot. But then afterwards, when I started my programs, it was especially through the mental health program, was I aware of emotional distortions, trigger factors, lapses of incorrect judgments, and failure to access to think about consent. I didn't have that properly established. That's when I actually knew where I went wrong. I failed to ask the right questions. I failed to interpret the right things. I learned about power differentials, because that was another reason that made me think about the situation, because power differentials, maybe she was, because the fact that I was older than her, maybe she was just trying to go along, and maybe she was just trying to accept. But at the same time, I failed to ask the right questions as well, because when we were talking about when we went to school or whatnot, she mentioned to me that she was going through second year of college, and I said to myself, okay, she's in college, so I calculated a certain age, and I didn't deem it necessary to go any further and specifically say, how old are you? In other words, what I did is I just listened to what I wanted to hear and just leave it at that. And that's why I justified in that moment to no longer ask any more questions. So in other words, bottom line is I don't want to go in circles and say things that I already said before. I had one way of thinking that way. And then after incarceration with the programs, I had a different way of thinking. I realized what I did wrong. I realized that I shouldn't have done that to her. I didn't put my family beforehand. I forgot about them and thought about myself, and I was selfish in that aspect. I was selfish in my ex. I was inconsiderate to her especially, because I didn't have the right to do that. It's not in my nature, but I failed in that moment. And that's why I decided to take the steps that I'm taking now and face myself before the system.
Thank you. So, because she was a minor when this happened, right?
Again, that's why I mentioned before that when we talked about school, she mentioned to me that she was in college. I drew my own conclusion. What I should have done is specifically ask her, how old are you? And when she said college, I said to myself, okay, so I calculated in my head, I said, okay, so you've got to be 19 or 20, because that's how old I was when I first started college. And again, that was my fault for not asking the proper question at the right time.
But I mean, you're part of the family, right? This was a family. She was sent there by her family for a visit. And so even though you didn't really know her because she lived in another country, but your families knew of each other, and you were asked because you were a relative of the people of her relatives who were housing her, right? Was that your brother that was housing her, or was it your sister?
My brother, so she is my brother's niece. So in other words, they're related by by my sister-in-law's side of the family. So I basically didn't know her. I knew of her, but I didn't know her on a personal level. And what it was that my sister-in-law is the one that asked me.
Okay. And then, so you're saying nothing aside from kissing, there was no actual sexual assault?
So basically what happened after that, I asked her if I can kiss her, and I started kissing her. And then what happened was without any disrespect, there was touching. There was touching involved. And
Okay.
it kept on going to more than just touching. But I was asking, but I was very, again, it wasn't in my nature, so I kept on asking, can I, is it okay? And at the moment when it was actually going to come to intercourse, that is when she said this is going to be her first time, and that is when I stopped. Because that's when I said this can't go on any further. Just before then. But as far as to answer the question, was it just kissing? No, it wasn't. I was going further. It got to the point where they was touching. And again, just before the point of.
All right. But why was your DNA found on her vaginal swabs, anal swabs, and genital swabs? And why would she have bruising on her hips and thighs?
That's another thing too. Thank you for reminding about that. Again, it was touching. Again, it was, I don't want to give disrespect, but I was kissing in inappropriate places. That's the answer to the question.
And you were 51 years old.
Yes.
At the time.
Yes.
And she's a minor, but you're saying you assumed maybe she was 19, and she doesn't remember what happened.
Yes, she said that she doesn't remember. And as far as the bruising is concerned, I'm not going to put any, how can I say it? I know the kind of person that I am. I know that I know exactly what I did and what I didn't do. And I can say, to be honest with you, I have no explanation for the bruising.
What made her realize something happened was that she was still hurting in her the next day.
You're correct. You're correct.
But you're saying there's no penetration, but she's hurting. Okay.
No.
All right, let's move on from that. So did you feel remorse or regret right after it happened?
Again, at the moment of that, right after, I did feel remorse. I did feel regret. I was sorry for what happened that day.
So when her aunt was asking you if something happened because her niece is telling her that her private parts, if you will, are hurting, you winked. You were denying it and winked at her, at the victim.
So that's the other thing, is that the following night, basically, I was called downstairs. I went downstairs and my brother started to ask me specifically what happened that night, or what happened last night. And to be honest, I got scared. I got scared because the very first thing that happened that popped into my head was, oh my God, my wife is gonna find out about this. And things started to go through my head as far as what happened. And in that time, in the moment when she walked in, that's when I said to myself, I said, wait a second. So yesterday we were talking about things, and we were in my head, we were going along with things. And now all of a sudden it's a different story. By that point in time, when she mentioned bruises, I said to myself, bruises, but I don't understand what kind of bruises, because she didn't really go into detail. She said bruises, so I thought of myself, maybe it was maybe I kissed her too hard, maybe I did something too hard or whatnot, but I didn't really go into details as far as the bruising system. So bottom line is, I panicked. I wanted to assess. I wanted to figure out what was going on at that moment in time, and that's when I looked at her. And I said, what I did is, if you can see what I did, what are you doing? What? And I figured in my head right then and there, I said, okay, maybe her aunt, my sister-in-law, started asking questions, and maybe she just tried to say nothing happened or whatnot. And then she felt that she got cornered, and then all of a sudden she just tried to say, yeah, Peter did this to me and I can't remember what happened. I thought that was my personal.
And you have not taken voices, which is on your offender accountability plan, which really helps to understand how victims experience crimes of all kinds. And new thoughts, that is also on your plan. I think those might help for an understanding as best as possible without being in her situation, of course. Okay, I see you are in the carpentry program, which is good. You've been married since 1997, and she did express willingness to sponsor you.
You are trapped.
And you said you have spoken with your prior employer and they're willing to bring you back, is that right?
Yes, basically, as far as the other programs are concerned, again, this is the first time of my incarceration, so I didn't know basically what the process was. When I arrived, I let things go the way that they were meant to go. I didn't realize, nobody really told me until I started asking questions, that I needed to write. So basically, I was writing in one thing, but I never bothered to keep my requests until June.
Okay.
When I started writing, so I was writing consistently to Officer Sienna at the time,
Okay.
that I wanted to take the programs because I knew that it was 50%. So more or less, I was doing the math to figure out when 50% was going to be, and I was asking if I can take those programs. I was given the answer that I'm on a wait list and I needed to wait and I didn't need to take any further action. So
Okay.
After that, I did start collecting. So I do have those requests here because I did write a couple of times, and also I did write here at this facility as well. So I was trying to get those done.
Yeah. Sometimes there are long wait lists, and so, but writing consistently to let them know you're still hoping for it is very helpful. But sometimes there are wait lists that are kind of beyond our control. It's less about, for me at this point, it's less about your willingness or your motivation to take it. It's more of the benefit those programs, I think, would have on you.
Yes.
I think they would be found helpful. I think you would enjoy them if you're interested in making atonement for what had happened. I think engaging with those programs in a real motivated way with your commitment to try and do whatever you can to, we can never right the wrong of what happened. There's no way, but I just think that could be helpful. But thank you for answering my questions. I'll pass it off to my colleagues. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Member Parole. I have no additional questions either. I think we've gone through it all. Okay, I think we're going to hear from the Office of Victim Services now. Sir, you can listen. Please don't interrupt during this time, okay?
Yes.
Good morning, panel. Our office received notice from the victim through Marisol, a counselor at the Crisis Center in Milford, who is in touch with the victim in Ecuador. Marisol relayed that the victim is adamantly opposed to his early release on parole. That's all I have, board members.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, so Mr. Cuvi, what's going to happen now is we're going to deliberate and talk about your case amongst ourselves. You can listen, sir, but again, please don't interrupt. When we're done, we'll give you our answer.
May I just say one thing, or if it's not possible?
Yeah. I don't want you to comment towards the victim or anything like that. Okay, you have something else to say. Okay, go ahead.
So basically, as far as going back to the previous question, as far as the programs are concerned, I was taking steps to take advantage of everything that was going, because yes, every program that I assisted, every activity that I assisted, yes, was, I thought, beneficial on a personal level. So that's why I volunteered for the programs. And I just wanted to say that I was consistently trying to improve myself through the other programs as well. So, and I have no opposition to programs that you're, I don't want to resist. In other words, I want to follow through and be compliant as best as I can. And
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Member Keys.
Thank you. Mr. Cuvi, does not have a adult criminal history here. So it does seem, this is his first sentence, I believe, over a year. However, it's quite serious. The victim's never going to really be the same. Her entire family has suffered significant changes to support her and make sure that she was able to get through this emotionally, mentally as best as possible. And it's been very challenging for her. I'm concerned with his story. It does not match the evidence. I think there'd be great benefit to the Voices program, as I hope there would be, and new thoughts. So I'm not in favor today. I would like him to be able to complete those programs. And he was just sentenced last year, I think, for the victim's sake. That's just too soon for him to then be getting out, and she's still suffering so much. So I am in denial today.
Okay, well, yeah, I see it a little different. I mean, he has done a lot of programs here. He's done the sex offender program and anger management. He's holding a job. Looks like a fatherhood program and some other things. He's also in the carpentry program. He rates low for risk to recidivate, and that has no criminal history. You know, his release plan appears realistic. When I look at it, it looks like he has support from his family, and he's got no disciplinary reports. So it's hard for me to, based on all the work he's done and his expression of remorse and regret, he's identified his triggers and knows what he did wrong. It's hard for me to withhold him from. Well, so I actually found him eligible for discretionary parole today. That's where I'm at.
I agree.
Okay. Let's talk about his conditions of release. I have no alcohol. Clearly, alcohol involved in this. I think that really played a role in some of his decision making around this. Also, community-based treatment for problem sexual behavior. I do not have anything related to the minors.
So,
No, this crime. Well, this crime at that age he wasn't charged with any kind of crime against minors.
she was 18, right?
She was 7 days away, it looks like, from 18, but it's 17 is still age of consent. He wasn't charged with any kind of sexual assault on a minor. This is more to do with her not having the ability to consent, right? Because of the alcohol, I believe. Yeah. So I didn't have anything as far as conditions with minors. I just had problem sexual behavior treatment, alcohol, and then no contact with the victim, TCA. That's who you are? Is there anything else you'd like to add to this? I understand you're dissenting.
I'm definitely dissenting, but
Yeah.
I just feel bad for the victim. I think
The nature and circumstances, I think we all agree, it's just awful, this whole situation.
The nature and circumstances are awful, but
Yeah.
for me, just to take a look at this, for me, the best place for him is on parole with the connection,
Yeah.
doing the programming in
Yeah.
the community, being monitored
Very close.
closely,
Mhm.
and being, they'll find out exactly what happened through
Yeah.
the means that they have.
It does appear that he's made some progress in what he's been able to, where he's at now from when I read the original report, for sure. And hopefully that'll continue, like you said, in the community.
There's no taking away that this is not for us.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And like, Mayor Key said, that this is going to affect the victim for forever, so this won't stop. Okay, in regards to Hector Cuvi, inmate number 449698, I'm going to make a motion to grant discretionary parole on or after his parole eligibility date of January 20th, 2026. Okay, with the following conditions. No alcohol consumption, community-based behavior management for problem sexual behavior treatment, and also no contact with the victim, initials TCA. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So, Mr. Cuvi, you've been granted discretionary parole by majority decision. Okay? Good luck to you, sir, okay?
May I just add one thing? I don't know if it makes a difference or not, but I don't know if you have it on record, but due to the circumstances, I also enrolled in addiction services because I know that alcohol played in a role.
Well,
so I was at AA as well.
I encourage you to follow up with that when you're out in the community, okay?
connection.
Thank
Thank you.
you
Thank you.
very much. I'm
Best of
grateful.
luck
Thank
to you. Keep your work going. Best of luck to you.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
This concludes the hearing of Hector.
Sir, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Do I just,
The hearing is ended. Just give us a second so he can make the announcement, and then when you leave the room, someone will contact you and come see you about how
Thank
this
you,
is gonna
sir.
work.
thank
Okay.
you very much.
This concludes the hearing. You're all set. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you very much.
This is madness. This is nothing short of madness. I know others, everyone probably, anyone who's not a PhD is screaming on the top of their lungs as they hear the parole board say the most insane things. You can't have it both ways. It was alcohol? According to his own story, they each had 2 beers. Which one was it? Was it alcohol or was it a roofie? You can't even run that past you. You can't even question him as a parole board member. You can't even say, well, you said you only got 2 beers. You then drove all the way across town. You were going to go to a bar. You didn't know where to go to a bar. So then you were going to go to a restaurant and then you didn't go there. And then you said the hotel and then she woke up and said she can't remember anything. Bruised DNA test. And you don't say, well, if you only had 2 beers, how are you saying, how is that possible? It's so obvious. And then they list down the reasons to grant. He's a first-time offender. Well, that's every chomo, isn't it? He's a low risk to reoffend. Well, isn't that every chomo? He doesn't have write-ups. Well, that sounds like every chomo in the book. Are these people dumb? Do they not understand what they're dealing with? This is their job. It's enraging. It really is. You know, like 99% of the Mandoo community knows all these things. Anyone who doesn't have a PhD knows these things, but the parole board, those placed in charge to protect us, to protect the community, they don't know anything. It's unreal. It's infuriating. You know, whenever you have Mike Pohl on the board, you know you're screwed because he's going to grant almost everybody. But Robert Sosowskis, he's usually better than this. You get the deny from Aileen Keyes, who I haven't figured out yet. She's new. But Robert Sosowskis, he goes on and makes an excuse. He goes on to say to just like to nullify everything. What you had was a monster who decided to rip apart so many lives. His brother's life, his own family's life, and of course, the life of this innocent girl. This girl who's been saving herself. And you rip that away. And then you sit here and you squirm like a cockroach. You squirm through the hearing with this long, pathetic tale of lies after lie after lie. And then you get called out in the lies. She was bruised. The DNA showed up everywhere. And you reward this liar with parole? Because he's a low risk to reoffend? Or because she's technically of legal consent age, 17? It doesn't even make sense. That's not the point. She woke up with no memory of what happened. And again, you can't have it both ways. Holy God. He said in his own statement, they each had 2 bears. They don't care. The parole board does not care about the truth. They do not care about victims. They do not care about justice. They do not care about protecting the community. This was a premeditated attack. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to do this. You know, he starts off, he even says, I had no idea how old she was. It's like he was gaslighting them. What's it have to do with age? He was he was trying to manipulate the board. His actual what he was locked up for 5/17/2022. He was arrested for felony of doing this to the physically helpless. And then he tries to manipulate the story. He tries to get like it was planned out. It's saying the whole thing about the age. And of course, you know, that's not even what he was locked up for. He would even know that. But he's trying to make it seem because you're listening to this and you don't even know where he's going. You don't even know what's happening here. You're waiting. We know better. We're waiting for the ball to drop, but we're like, but and then the parole board says, well, of course you knew how old she was. She's a family member. I didn't. I didn't, which is BS. But you get it? It's like he's even gaslighting you and just getting lost down that. And nothing he said was true. Nothing he said was honest. It was the squirmiest, slimiest, nastiest. And to think of this disgusting roach, now at the age of 50 years old, having his brother's niece in a motel room with his disgusting, and you just can't. The parole board, the last line of defense, they could have, this was the easiest hearing they could have ripped him a new one over and over and over again. They could have held him to the fire. They needed to. And one thing they absolutely needed to is not to grant. Yeah, Mike Paul saying, well, it'll be good. He'll be out on supervision. We can watch him. And it's like, what? Do you think we're all stupid? His sentence was 10 years jail, suspended after 3, probation 10. He's under probation supervision for 10 years. You know the best place that they could watch him is in prison. But they do not care about victims. They do not care. They could not care less. And it's disturbing that the only voice that we could hear from, the only statement was the victim, not this Chobo's brother who should have been talking on behalf of the victim, not her mother. No. You can imagine how families are torn apart by this. And the parole board, they see nothing. They see nothing. They hear nothing. You know, I'm recording this the day before New Year's, and I'm afraid that Connecticut might pass some new laws where come New Year they are going to block hearings. It's something that keeps me up at night. It's happened before, and that's why I'm concerned with other states. And I think this is why they don't want the world to see just how incompetent and empatheticless. It was even the words that Aileen Keyes said was like, well, I feel bad for the victim. Those are the wrong words. You don't say, I feel bad for the victim. You would say, as Mr. Roche says, the victim is still suffering. There are 3 reasons of incarceration. There is rehabilitation. There is protection, right, to keep them away from harming other victims. And then there is retribution. Can you imagine if he had done this to one of their daughters? You think they'd be so flippant? I feel bad, but we'll grant. There's no chance in hell. I mean, there is, maybe. They are psychopathic, they're agenda driven. Maybe they would grant. They're dangerous. Well, he's a first-time offender. He's a low risk to reoffend. Yeah, at 47 years old, doing this? This is something that he had thought about, he had fantasized about, he had planned. I believe he went out, and of course, this isn't in the books, this isn't documented, this is just my opinion. But according to him, he only bought 2 beers. You don't get knocked out from 2 beers. You don't not forget nothing from 2 beers. So I have to assume there was something else. Maybe there was something in the beer. I don't think that's a far stretch. God, I'm pissed off. And with that, I'll let you go.
Feel bad for the victim, I think that's.
No, the nature and circumstances, I think we all agree, it's just awful, this whole
The
situation.
nature and circumstances are awful, but
Yeah.
for me, just to take a look at this, for me, the best place for him is on parole.
Marisol relayed that the victim is adamantly opposed to his early release on parole.